Hi, Ian Roberts and Mastering Composition. So I've been getting a lot of questions about like what brushes do I use and what paint, is it oil paint? By the way, I'm always using oil paint. And I thought maybe in a couple of weeks I'd do a studio tour with like techniques and materials so we can kind of orchestrate some of those things just straight out. But this week I'm going to do another one of those 5 images I showed you before. This is that town in Corsica. And one viewer very kindly told me what the name of the town was, but I can't find the email, so I don't know. But anyway, it's in Corsica. And it's a big painting. You know, it's 40 inches by 40 inches. And it presents, like large paintings can, present all kinds of challenges. You'll see as I develop it. So this diagram will give you a sense of the difference in scale of, say, a 12 by 12 inch painting and a 40 by 40 inch painting. You know, it's only 3.5 times as long on that side, say between 12 and 40, but 12 times as big in terms of surface area. So something that's this big on a 10 by 12 now is like, whoa, I have to figure out what I'm going to do. And you'll see some of the challenges I have as I work through this one. But notice that the photograph is a rectangle and I'm painting a square. And I just thought the square would give it a more sort of lofty feeling for the church, but it also exaggerated the size of the foreground, which is where I ran into trouble. I'm starting with that color there because it's blued out, kind of grayed out, and I just want to try to get the value. First thing against white, try to find the easiest color I could, and then I can sort of check it against the values on that building. Then, you know, next to that, the church, and then that kind of ochre steeple. But I'm just trying to sort of find these different colors as I go. This is a mountain that's obviously much closer than that one back there. It's just in behind the town. And I'm using a smaller brush, and it's probably a number 8, but it's a filbert to paint the buildings because I want them sort of squarish. You'll see that a lot of this I paint with one of those big chip brushes, but the buildings, you know, the roofs and so on like that. And the roofs I put in kind of too pink because I'll be putting a layer of paint on top of that. And then I'm just drawing in, smaller brush, again about another 8, probably maybe a 6, but just a filbert, just to kind of draw in because I want this blue shape of the clouds coming right down to join, not to touch, but to sort of bring us down to the church. I want the sky to be an active element, so I'm pushing that even closer there. So you can see that the clouds are doing the job of pulling us into the church. And then this is Mediterranean, right? So I've got a really nice kind of rich blue back there. And then that's the darkest color for the clouds. Way more contrast than in the photograph. I'm just making this up. But there's that, you've seen that as I go down towards the mountains on the left, I'm sort of making it lighter. It's obviously lighter up here next to the buildings because I want the buildings to stand out a little bit. And then as they get up to the edges, you see I've got some ochre, lighter ochre color in with that gray as the sun sort of starts to come into it. But the edges are very soft, right? You're not getting any hard edges up in those clouds. And that whole section up there is just sort of flat, even, not really very much going on up there. But then when I start to get the clouds, you know, the light coming around the clouds, then I get that ochre back into it to sort of give that sense of transition from lit side to dark side. So there it's a little bit lighter. You see there's a little bit of ochre in there, and I brush out the edges so you don't really get them so much. And then the next cloud over, there's quite a bit more ochre put in there because that's again where I kind of want to bring your attention into that little notch down to the church. And then later I'll finish, you know, have all sort of little edges that make it look more real. But for right now, we're just getting the values about right and just getting not any hard edges to pull our attention. And then this whole foreground, the whole foreground really, it's almost half the painting, was, you'll see. I really had trouble with it actually. So this whole section on the bottom right, I just want to begin with just one big flat simple shape. I want it darker at the bottom that sort of pushes us up into the painting so we don't fall out there so much. And then I'm just gradating it all so it all just kind of hangs in there as one simple shape. And those are those tall grasses, sort of a cooler green. And I'll put in the shadow side later. But just kind of getting each of these shapes in. That's that big tree, kind of a yellowy ochre tree. Each green, you know, it's a pretty intense green beside the one I'm doing now, but they'll all get dulled out as I go. But I just want each of the greens to have sort of some character and not just all be the same. And that's the road. There's sort of a dark mark there that I'm just painting into now. That's the shadow, but that'll have more blue in it as it comes. And then sort of the trees and the shadows back over in that section. But you see, it's very simply painted. And here I'm trying to start to get some understanding of what's going to happen here with this palm tree. Just kind of getting in the big shapes of that now. And then the shadows of the trees. And you can see there's very clearly a lit side. I mean, the sun's shining really brightly here. Right? It's Corsica. Lit side, dark side to each of the trees, and now the shadow side. And it's all wet paint, the shadow side of these tall grasses. So I'm just painting wet into wet, and just shape by shape as we go through here, just figuring out how all these different things are going to fit together on this scale. And then I think now I just put in one little touch there for the window, and then you'll see here is the first block-in. When the block-in was dry, then I worked on the buildings, because that's the center of interest. That's where I want you to go. And once that's kind of established, then I can start to see everything else in relationship to that. And I darkened that just because it had been too much, just holding too much attention. The foreground was where I had the most problems. Now I'm starting to sort of get some variety here, building up some, interest there. But already this part here, you'll see as I go forward, it just eludes me. Here I've pretty much finished everything in behind the buildings, but the important thing to look at is look at the quality of the edges here, here, and here. My intention is to have the sky to bring us here. And you can see the quality of the edges, there's more information, there's stronger edge quality and contrast, and then they get very soft everywhere else. So here I've spent more time up in these trees, kind of softening the edges there and creating more form, and continuing to sort of muddle around with this thing, trying to figure out how I'm going to get it to work. I've finished the buildings, got light up there that really sort of grips our attention in terms of that being finished. And still playing with this, trying to integrate it better into the whole painting and get everything from here feeling like it's integrated well with the rest of the painting. And there's the finished painting. You can see that I've integrated these colors more so that they don't hold so much attention. There's form, but they don't really jump apart because of different colors. And that I put these things up over that roof in order to pull us up to here, and I lightened that just so that integration between here and here was a little better. That line there actually doesn't exist. It's coming up because of glare, I think. But I think I've integrated that now so that the whole thing kind of hangs together as one whole. So please do like the video if you liked it, and please do subscribe or sign up for my email list. There's a link down below, and you'll receive this in your inbox every Tuesday morning. So I hope you have a terrific week. I'll see you on Tuesday. All the best, and bye for now.